Good evening and welcome to an ATX TV original screening and conversation event. I'm Caitlin McFarland and this is Emily Gibson. And we're the co-founders of ATX TV and are thrilled to continue our partnership with AMC and Fear the Walking Dead tonight with a season 6 screening and conversation. AMC has given ATX an exclusive first look at the second episode of season 6, which will air on October 18th, Sunday, at 8 p.m. Central.
Personally, in this new virtual world, I find it very comforting when we get to showcase shows and host people who've been to the physical festival. And we've had Fear the Walking Dead at the festival twice, which feels doubly good.
Me too. Also, personally, never thought I'd refer to it as the physical festival, but we have to differentiate somehow. Look, we're still on the couch. Actually, my couch now. We're still on the couch. And we think it's best we stay here for a little while. And it's pretty comfortable, if I do say so myself. This way we get to share our favorite TV and hopefully meet some new friends who aren't always able to make it to Austin.
That's the other thing that makes even more sense about this screening is that Fear the Walking Dead actually films in Austin, something we're pretty proud of. And we can't wait until they get to return. Make more TV, and then maybe we can all share a margarita and a taco or a few.
Yeah, as comfortable as I am on this couch, I really do want to share a drink and a taco with people again.
It'll happen someday, promise.
I'll go make one now as we settle into the screening. I can have one while we watch, I think. Right?
That's a good idea. Can you also drop it off at my house? That'd be great.
It's going to be a little watery.
I'll take it. But now, without further ado, let's watch episode 602, and then we'll be joined by our moderator, Aslanian from TV Guide magazine, who will then introduce our panelists.
Enjoy the show.
I found a place. Safe. Virginia won't find us there.
Thank you for finally unburdening yourself.
If you go down this path, there's no going back.
Morgan, you can't let it end like this. How do you know my name?
I'm gonna help those people. Good people die here today.
So he's dead then.
I hope you all enjoyed the episode. This is Emily Aslanian with TV Guide Magazine and TVinsider.com. Joining me now, we have Fear the Walking Dead cast members, Alicia Debnam-Carey, who plays Alycia Clark.
Hi.
Domingo plays Victor Strand.
Hello there. How you guys doing?
Alexa Nisenson, who plays Carly.
Hi.
Colby Minifie, who joined last season as Virginia. What, guys? Also, newest cast member, Zoe Colletti, who plays Dakota.
Hello.
And also joining us today is special guest and cast member Lenny James. You know him as Morgan Jones, but Lenny also made his directorial debut in this episode.
So 2 hands to say hello.
Thank you all so much for hopping on Zoom today with me. We just saw Welcome to the Club, episode 602. Lots of exciting things happen in there. But first, Lenny, I want to start with you. This is your directorial debut. I was on set back in February before the world completely ended. And you looked cool as a cucumber. Like, it was second to last day of filming, I believe. And you were rocking it. But how nervous were you actually to get behind the camera creatively?
There was a moment where I had to talk through the first scene on set and what we were going to do, and it was quite a large scene. And this was after a couple of days where we'd shot the teaser, but all of the cast were there, all of the set were there, all of the supporting artists who were playing the walkers were there, and I had to talk through the scene. And just before I was about to start speaking, I suddenly realized I had no idea what I was going to say. And I don't think I've been that frightened on a film set since the first time I'd ever walked on a film set. And I was very scary, but luckily Colman had sent me a cheat sheet for my first day on what I should do and what I should say. And I remembered some of the stuff that he had said on there, and that kind of got me through. And also, everybody was so on my side that no one was going to allow me to mess up, and certainly not mess up on my first day.
What was on the what was on the do not do sheet? I'm curious about that.
Oh no, it wasn't a do not do sheet. It was to do sheet.
It was a to-do sheet.
It's not even that. It's just these basics that I think that you don't know until you're there, and it's kind of like that gentle reminder of like what everyone needs, because everyone's coming at you. They're going to come at you, and everybody has their needs. And I'm like, focus on this first, then that, and you're good. And lead the way. I feel like hopefully I said something like lead the way. I think a lot of times, we as artists, we know more than we actually think that we know. And I wanted to assure my comrade that he knows much more than he thought that he knew. You know what I mean? So I wanted to lean into all that he is, because Lenny's a great leader and he's a great guy. And I know that any way that he communicates as well. So I just wanted to remind him, just go with all that good stuff that you got already. And it's gonna
that was one of the things that was kind of best advice, was that Colman had said, you know how to do this. And I didn't. But the fact that somebody thought I did really, really helped. And that was kind of the way I got through the whole episode, is people had confidence in themselves, but also seemed to have a bit of confidence in me.
Now, I know this season's a little bit more of an anthology style, or a little bit of genre hopping, mini movie kind of vibe. How was this particular story of 602 originally pitched to you as the director?
It was an exploration of Strand and Alycia, really. I mean, it was taking them to their point of isolation and taking them to their point of rock bottom. When they are delivered to our main location, it is, of all of the places that all of the communes that Virginia controls, this is rock bottom. And it was a journey of seeing how they rise from there. And I had kind of titled the episode just for myself, which was Let Strand Be Strand, because his journey out of rock bottom was the main kind of driving force. His realization of who the decisions that he makes at the end of the episode, the pinning on of the key, of deciding, of going the Strand way, back to the Strand way, and realizing that he needs to separate himself from Alycia to be able to do that, realizing what the positives that she brings to him, but also the possible negatives that he sees in that, and their wrestle, their battle, and the kind of danger of Dakota being dropped in the middle of this, wrestle between Alycia and Strand. That was the heart of the episode, really, or where I saw it.
Awesome. Now, definitely rock bottom is definitely the best way to describe this, because they start off, we see Alycia and Strand are on latrine duty, more or less, and it's definitely not an ideal situation. And I think they're both a little bitter about it, but Colman, I think Strand in particular, is showing right off the bat that he wants out of this immediately. You think that at the start of the episode, Colman, that Strand knew just how dirty his hands would be by the end?
I don't know. I think that there was a couple ways to play it, and I think we talked about it. Alycia and we talked about it with our director. And I think I pretty much believe that Strand, he was going to get on the other side of that fence, one way or the other, and he knew what his options were. He's like, okay, so trying to do right by doing this job is not getting it, but maybe I can, even if I get into a little trouble, I'll get on the inside. And it's just about getting over and through that gate. And once he gets in there, I think that he can assess where he is and how he can find agency in it. So I think, yeah, in the beginning, he's very much at the bottom, and that's not what he agreed to. He did Virginia a solid. He gave her, the MRAP. And you're like, so this is my just desserts? I think not. Let me get in there and see what I can get. Let me talk to the big lady,
Definitely. pretty early on, we also finally meet Zoe, your character Dakota, which is super exciting. I think she's got a great entrance. It kind of defines this character right off the bat. And it pretty much makes a big statement that while Dakota and Virginia are sisters, they're not necessarily on the same side of things. And she's definitely going to possibly prove to be quite a foil for her big sis. But why do you think that, Zoe, why do you think Dakota is inclined to help Strand and Alycia in the first place?
I mean, obviously, as everyone already knows, I can't really say a whole ton about my character, which is unfortunate for all of you. But yeah, I think it's kind of something that you see with, honestly, a lot of sibling relationships. I mean, there's, you know, good and bad to every sibling relationship. It's not like they're going to be your best friend 24 hours a day. So there's, you know, the older sister thing you've got going on. I think she'd be inclined to help because I think it kind of gives a note of maybe that Dakota would need help in return. I think she's kind of putting out help to kind of put feelers out to who her sister's got in the community there and kind of get to know the people and have her eyes around. I mean, she's got her sister as who's leading this community, so why shouldn't she kind of have an idea of what's going on as well? So, you know, I think she's inclined to help them because she wants to kind of know what's up and know what her sister's up to and what kind of people are, you know, who she wants to be friends with and what kind of people she's going to be living with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Colby, what was your reaction when you found out Virginia was going to get a sister this season?
Oh, I was so happy. It's so nice to like have also when I saw Zoe, I was like, duh, we look so, we have like the same haircut and the same hair color. And I was like, yeah, this chick is badass and I'm so happy to have her as my family. But also like Virginia needs a pal. Like she's got her team, she's got her, goons. I don't want to call them goons because they're more than that, but she's got her army of people and her team members that she trusts. But also I think it's hard sometimes with someone as intense as Virginia is to see her heart, and Zoe's character Dakota is definitely that for her this season. So I'm really excited for fans to see why Virginia does what she does and to love her a lot more.
Definitely see this edition as humanizing her. I don't know about love, but
what?
Sure.
You don't love her? What do you mean?
I don't want
to yeah, humanizing is the right word. Yeah.
I want her to say her bad self because I love that.
Yeah. Good. She does.
Oh, good. Now, this next one's for Alycia. Now, we see that they have this assignment to clear out the warehouse for Virginia, and Alycia and Strand are immediately like, how can we leverage this to make our lives better? Ultimately, they go with Alicia's plan over Strand's, and as we see, it doesn't quite pan out the way that they wanted it to. Do you think that Alycia regrets going with her plan, or do you think she stands by what she thinks is the right thing to do in that situation?
I mean, I think what has led Alycia to survive this long is for her ability to have a core value of empathy and unity and compassion. And I think, you know, she chose to do what she did so she could keep people united and so she could make sure that there was no unnecessary loss. And I think in a world that's so dominated by deception and malice and sinister values, there is something to be said for her to maintain that kind of compassion. And I do think it does separate her from a lot of the characters in a way. It's not to say that she hasn't been without her mistakes and she hasn't, you know, suffered because of some choices she's made. But I also think it's this combination of her knowing when to be a little bit more pragmatic and a little bit more ruthless, and having learned that from, you know, characters like Madison, maybe the unpredictability of Nick, you know, a con artist mind frame like Strand. but to also bring it really back to what her core values are, which is still to lead with unity and compassion. And I think it's taken a long time for her to get to that place. And while in this specific instance, I think, yes, she's feeling a little like, well, this didn't really go to plan. But I don't think that is a characteristic that she is completely able to absolve within herself. That is what makes her Alicia Clark. And I think that is one of the big reasons why she's still standing, to be honest.
We also got the coolest walkers in this episode. We got some molasses covered walkers.
Oh, okay. I will say one thing. You think these were the coolest walkers? I actually get another episode which have by far the coolest walkers you will have seen.
Ever.
Period.
For sure.
Ever. Like ever. I mean like on both shows. I would say they were and that's like a fun that's a fun non-spoiler because it's a fun thing to look out for. But they were like amazing. Like I kind of, you get a little desensitized after a while. You're like, yeah, like it's like whatever. It's just like part of the show. But there was a day on set where I was just like gobsmacked. I was like walking around, like touching them, like taking photos. They're like, Alicia, stop it. I was like, I can't. They look really, really good. Yeah.
And what was weird is that everybody was talking about them, but even what everybody was saying, still when you saw them, you went, oh my God.
Yeah,
look at that.
Exactly. It was amazing.
I don't expect it.
Well, that's cool. I'm excited to see that. But for molasses zombies, I mean, that's a pretty high bar. Like, that's cool.
Oh, I know. That's how you know I mean it. And I've been on this show for 6 seasons, so you know I mean it.
Oh, Alycia, Colman, Alexa, everyone that was in the molasses, how sticky did you get? Like, was that like a really messy shoot for you?
Actually, not really. It was more slippery because it wasn't. Yeah, it was more slippery though.
Yeah, it was more slippery.
I had it like down my face, up my arms. It was in my
Oh,
hand.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you did.
You guys, yeah, I was covered in it.
That's right.
It was pretty sticky for me.
We were like, molasses for the kid. She'll be fine.
Yeah, she'll be good with it. No, it was super fun though. I mean, it was very sticky and slippery. It was kind of like a combination, but it was super fun.
Yeah, after that ponytail, like Walker pulling her ponytail back scene, I'm really surprised she didn't just go for like a bob or something. Like,
Me too. I know. Yes, I had some extensions in my hair. That wasn't all my real hair. So, I mean, it was a lot, but it was super fun. I mean, I love that I got to do some stunts with it. So thank you to our stunt coordinators and Lenny for letting me do that. And it was a big sequence, and there was a lot going on, but it was super exciting to film.
Yeah. Anytime there's like a close call for a character on the show, like with Walker related close call, it gets like really intense, and I can only imagine the like mechanics of shooting something like that. Seems very complicated. Actually, Lenny, was there, I mean, between the molasses walkers in the opening scene and that like makeshift tunnel that they had them all going down, what was the most like technically challenging scene to shoot?
It was the walkers coming down the tunnel and coming through, and the logistics of it, and that we had to kind of have action happening in two distinct places, and the location didn't quite offer us the separation that we really needed. And there was a couple of points in that. That was one moment where we all really kind of pulled together, and I really was aware of how much this was a kind of collaborative process, and that how light sometimes you have to be on your feet when you're directing and having to pull things together, and you have to reassess your plans. And that was a moment where we had to kind of break it down into little pockets and allow the camera to give us the separation that we didn't in actuality have. But it was that was probably the trickiest day. That was the toughest moment. And it's a big, you know, for a kind of first time director, you know, there aren't many episodes, certainly on Fear, that have as many kills as we had to kind of go through, and kind of, you know, legitimizing all of those and keeping control of it was kind of not easy. And I was very reliant on the fact that there were people around me who knew what they were doing to kind of help me get through it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they gave you like a mini horde. I mean,
yeah. Well, there's one point, you know, something's going on when, you know, the execs show up on the set, where all of a sudden Mikey's there, and all of a sudden they're there, and you're like, this is either because things are going really well or because things are going really badly. I don't know which it is yet, but I'm just going to plow on. And you have to, you know, one of the things you kind of discover about the directing is mostly what you're doing is answering questions. All day, from the moment you get started until the moment you finish, all you're doing is answering questions. What do you want the scene to be? Where do you want to shoot it from? What's the feel you want? How many people do you want in it? What do you want the actors to be doing? And so everything is just about answering questions. And once you get used to that, which is not easy, you kind of can find your way, and you find out about yourself. And as Colman said to me in person and in the text that he sent me, you suddenly find out how much you know, and you suddenly find out how, you know, that you can answer the questions that actually, even though you've never been asked the question of which kind of molasses would you like, even though you've never been asked that question before, you suddenly find out that you go, actually, I have an answer for that. And go, I want that one. And that's kind of the journey through it, really.
And I just want to say, like, Lenny, you did such an amazing job, and it was
shut up.
Pleasure. I really wanted, it was such pleasure, like, being on set, and you were so excited, you were so ready, and you were so game and down to clown, and like, you were just so ready to play and be there, and you were present to whatever was going on, and it was a real privilege to have you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just hoping you'll hire me again at some point. That was.
I would love to be in a position where I could hire you again, Colby. If we get to that position where I am hiring you, I would genuinely say I've landed.
Oh. Okay, great. Same, dude. Same.
Now, I want to talk about the really bad thing that we saw happen in this episode, which was Strand's really, really terrible moment of stabbing and pushing this character, Sanjay.
That was a wonderful moment.
I mean...
I was like, what are you talking about? I was
like, what terrible moment? What are you talking about? I shined in that moment. You know what it is? What I'll say about that moment is this. It's like, is that he realizes, you know, this guy had no value. I mean, this guy was supposed to have one job to do, couldn't do it. Everybody else is about to die. So you want to be useful. This is the way you can be useful. That's why I feel like it was a shining moment for Strand. For Strand to go with his natural instincts, which is saying, okay, you must be useful. If you're not, I have another use for you. You can be chum if it's to save the rest of everyone else. So I think that's what he does in that moment. And I thank Lennie James so much for allowing me to fly my freak flag when I gave out that terrible scream after I stabbed him and pushed him. I thought, Lenny, I'm gonna try something. And he was like, go ahead. And I was like, it's so insane. And Lenny and I were dying laughing. He was like, that's right.
I loved it.
What Lenny was doing was making sure that which I love so much, would be a great conversations about it, is letting Strand be Strand. So it was like letting the cap off the Strand who's been sort of like, you know, following other philosophies for a couple seasons and being his true self. And that was, I felt like that was a great shift in character right there, is when that happened. And I owe that to Lenny.
I was gonna say actually that moment is a pivotal moment in the journey of letting Strand be Strand. And within that moment, when he stabs him in the leg and he's pushing him forward, and he is screaming because he's been stabbed in the leg, and then Strand is behind him going, ah, like that. I just thought it was genius. I thought it did everything I needed it to do and more. I just thought it was fantastic, and anybody would. I mean, you know, a first-time director, a 20-time director would go, that's a great moment, because it was one of the things that was really important for me in this episode between Alicia and Strand, was that we were true to their history to each other, but also their history separate to each other. And that is Strand. That in that moment, what does he needs to do? He needs to draw away those walkers from Alicia and Janice inside there so that he can save them. And this is the way that he's doing it. And it needs a scream, so he screams. I love it. I thought it was a genius suggestion.
So I think what we're saying here is Strand is not going to regret this decision at all.
Oh no, I think Strand is beyond regrets. I honestly feel that that's exactly part of the episode. I think that he has been wrestling with his inner demons for so long, and at some point he realizes he's been wrestling with something that hasn't actually been working for him. You know, so he has to be true to his nature. So I think in this episode we really do see that, and you know, he's got Alicia beside him to remind him of who he is, and that's also part of the complex. He's like, I've got to be me. I've got to do the unpopular things to survive. Yes.
Making me want that musical episode even more, man.
Oh, I'm dying for it. You know, I'm dying for it.
I think we all are. Now, uselessness of Sanjay aside, his character was really interesting because it's like, how did he survive this long in the
That's what we were saying.
That's what
we thought.
We were like,
how did he make it?
Alicia and I were constantly saying that, like,
We were literally just, like,
like he was that,
like,
he
what
was
is
that
he doing
survivor
that
that
we're
just
not
kept
doing?
hiding in the back. Like he was the survivor that kept hiding in the back and was in like
Yeah.
and stayed out of the way. But because we're like, I don't know how you made it, dude. And then by the time it was necessary, we were like, yeah, you're not going to make it, and you're not going to be helpful or useful. So you gotta...
This is the real world, Sanjay.
Almost felt like it was like a callback to like what the survivors could have looked like before they were hardened by life and like years of the post-apocalyptic world. But it's like, it's crazy to me that he could have been on for that long.
The only way we could really justify it is that he was kind of sheltered in Lawton and just never left the place, and never really had a sense of the outside. And then when he goes to the outside, because it's not just that he couldn't survive anywhere, because you know there are people who have survived behind walls and have not been on the outside. I think World Beyond is an example of that. But he went from one of the top places, this is the discussion I had with the actor, is that he went from one of the top places of being in Lawton to rock bottom. And the fact is, he can't survive rock bottom. He can't survive being in any way, shape or form in close contact with walkers. He's not equipped for that at all. And more importantly, he's frightened. I mean, and that's his first instinct is, there's a capital F in his fear. I mean, he's just, he's never been this close to them before, and he just can't get past it.
I think one of my favorite parts about Sanjay in general, as short-lived as he was, is he gave us an amazing opening scene that you got to direct, Lenny. I mean, I loved that opener. Like, it was just such a perfect cold open. It was terrifying. And it was just so on the nose for like setting the tone for the rest of the episode, which I thought was good.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what we were trying to do when I was speaking to Adam, the DOP. It was like, I want people to be genuinely scared. I want their perception of what's behind the door to just be monumental, and we just went after it. It's one of the things that I'm most pleased about, because in a weird way, that teaser was my show reel as a director to a certain extent, because that was all about, all of the actors you see in the teaser are new to the show. The location is new to the show. Introducing Sanjay was all new, so it was all down to what we wanted it to be, and obviously using the script. So yeah, I'm really glad the way that it kind of turned out. But I mean, Adam just knew from our conversations, what it was I was after, and he really delivered.
Yeah. Now, Colby, somehow after Strand and Alycia have killed a ton of her rangers, Virginia's kind of happy that they've succeeded in clearing out this warehouse. She awards Strand with a key.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the club. But does she really think that she can manage Strand as an army leader? Doesn't it feel like she's kind of just giving him the option to revolt against her?
That is a really good question, but I do think that Virginia sees Strand's desire to have her luxury. I feel like on some level she knows that, like, I think she sees in Strand a kind of a similar thing that she has, which is like she'll do what it takes to live the life she wants to lead and have safety. And I think she sees that in Strand as well. And like that key is important. It's luring him with power. And if she gives him a certain level of power, she knows that he will be loyal to her in return. I think those kinds of transactional relationships are what Virginia's entire sense of power is based upon. And yeah, I mean, she's not happy that they killed the Rangers, but what they did do was they strategically and intellectually figured out how to get rid of all of those walkers. And that's what that space was there for her to build an army. And Strand fucking did it. He did it. He figured that out.
and I want to piggyback on that. I do think that, that for Strand in that moment is saying he's valid, that his thinking was right, that his instincts were right. And it's been a long time coming that someone said, exactly the way you were doing that, you kind of did all right. Here's the key. You belong. And so I think that empowers him even more so. So I feel like he's beholden to her in that moment.
Yeah. Well, Strand has a really crazy transition in this episode where he goes from basically saying it's about being someone that you can look in the eye when it's all over to Alycia, to saying, I need to completely forget who I am and I need to abandon this person. What do you think it is that causes this shift in his mindset? Because I think he hasn't been following his instinct. He has always been challenged by it. Everyone wants him to do what they think is the right thing. So he's been leaning into that because I think he's had self-doubt sewn into his psyche. And then he realizes, by the time we got to the end of season 5, that things weren't working out because also he didn't step up and follow his instinct on things. That was the key to his survival. So I think that he's now, especially in season 6, really finding agency with saying, hey, I can't listen to anyone anymore. I have to follow my own instinct. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die by my own hands. It won't be the philosophy of the group. He's like, I can no longer do that. I have to step up and stand for what I believe in. And if it means my demise, so be it. But if it means some success, so be it. Okay. Is it safe to assume that Strand and Virginia and Dakota are going to kind of circle the same orbit for a while? Or are they going to be in the same place? Become a blended family? Is that what you're saying? I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find out. Now, I don't know. I think that we're operating from a lot of the same principles. So who knows? So I think that there's something that draws each other's energy in that way. Definitely. Now, by the end of the episode, you get the idea that there might be a wedge slowly being driven between Alycia and Strand, these characters that have been ride or die for like years. Does Alycia have her doubts about Strand by the end?
I mean, absolutely. But I also think it's because it's a stark reminder of a part of Strand that she's sort of forgotten for a little bit, that he is a con man. That's how she came to know him. And it is a bit of reminder of, oh, this is still a part of him. but she also knows him more than anyone else. And she knows that there is always an ulterior motive and, a plan in place that I think she has faith that he still will ultimately, at the end of the day, try and do the things that will support, this new family, because it's still, historically speaking, been true, and they have gone through too much together to completely deny that. But yeah, I mean, she's definitely a little bit of a crossroads with who Strand really is, but I think that's also part of his duplicitous nature. So, that is how she knows him. If anything, I do think, for her, having these reminders just helps inform where she's headed and, what path she's going to take. And that the way a lot of these strong leading characters have chosen to attack a problem, informs what she should do.
Definitely. Now, we've seen Alicia kind of grow up in this apocalyptic world, in this world of the dead. We're seeing that a little bit more with Charlie. We're seeing it a little bit more with Dakota, now that Dakota's on the scene. What can Alexa and Zoe, what can you tell me about how these younger generation, how do they feel about everything that's going on around them right now?
I mean, I think it's so great that we're getting to see younger people's perspective of what's going on around them, because I can only imagine that for a teenager it would be absolutely terrifying, to be in this position. So I think it's really interesting to see two young girls kind of growing up in this world that is terrifying and trying to find their way.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Alexa is saying. I can personally say for myself, I would be one of the first people to die if I was in that situation, 100%. I think especially for Dakota, just coming in, I think you can kind of see from this little bit that she's definitely been protected and sheltered by Virginia for, most of what you've seen her for, at least. So I think it'll be a character that's kind of interesting to see how, she adapts to maybe getting to see a little bit more of like what it's like to be living out, and a little more what it's like to not live behind like super protected walls, and kind of a older sister figure, an adult in your life, where, someone like Charlie, of course, doesn't have as much of like she's got, Alicia and Strand and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be really cool to get to see, almost like you were talking about Sanjay, how it's kind of cool to see a character that like definitely wasn't super seasoned with being among walkers and all that kind of thing. So
yeah,
get to see what that's like, because I definitely would be dead, unfortunately for me.
I'd be right there with you.
Yep.
Zoe, you get to kill a walker. You get to save Charlie. That was
Yes, I was so excited. When I tell you, I was like the hugest fan of Walking Dead. Like I went to like a Walker Stalker con. Like I waited online for like 5 years to get in. Like when I tell you I was like a super fan. So getting to like, that was the first day I even saw walkers. Like that, filming this episode was the first time I was on set as well. So I was like having a small heart attack. And yeah, getting to kill a walker on my first day of getting to see walkers period was like pretty surreal for me. But that was insane. They're very scary.
Yeah.
Around behind me, like when I see people in my peripheral vision and I realize it's not like normal people, it's very alarming. But the more that like they'll be like singing and just having like really funny normal conversations, which just looks hilarious, which all of you are used to that, but for me I was like okay. But I was like that my first day with them. It was awesome. I loved it. It was so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Colman, we've talked about Lenny's directing episode 2, but you've also directed quite a few episodes, as we've said. including, from what I hear, the next episode 603.
Yeah.
Yours. Without spoiling anything, but I don't want to go too far ahead. What can you tell me about one of the scenes that we'll see in 603 that was a particularly big hurdle for you?
I think it's a vertical episode. It stars Maggie Grace and Austin Emilio, and it's very Die Hard-esque episode. And but you know, it's lots of moving pieces, but it really does get to some heart and soul issues to the core of both of their characters, and it's quite intimate at the same time.
Interesting. Yeah,
it's beautifully put together. It's a really, really lovely episode, and it's a real fantastic exploration of Althea and Dwight. And you wouldn't necessarily have put the two of them together, but they just are doing such fantastic work. And Colman's right, it is kind of Die Hard-esque. So there's the adventure, but there's also the intimacy, and it's a really lovely episode.
Lenny, is there a movie comparison for 602 that you kind of had in your head?
It's a little Shawshank. You know, just a little. I don't want to get above myself, but it's kind of it's a little Shawshank.
Very cool. I like that. Now, I can't not have this chat and not talk about that final scene in the episode, the final moments that we see. When we finally see Morgan again, and he kind of just walks back on after we had an entire episode in 601 about him having this very traumatic episode of recovering and dealing with a bounty hunter who was very scary. Are we going to see, it looks like Morgan's going to have this just incredible arc this season. Are we going to see him try and get his makeshift family back after Virginia split them all up?
Yes, we are. We are going to see him try and do that. I mean, it's a really funny thing because actually that scene to me was so much more about Daniel than it was about Morgan. For me, it was so much more about the reveal that Daniel hasn't lost his memory and that he's been exercising the skills that Salazar acquired from the job that he used to do. And I think it also puts a real kind of onus on how well he's been doing that job, because it comes after the scene, the beautiful scene that he has with Charlie, where she's, you know, almost begging for the last time to kind of go, do you remember me? And it's all on Ruben's face, because we were running out of time, we had to do it in a one-er, but the scenes just came out really, really well, and it's all reliant on Ruben's face, that you don't see it, you don't think he's play acting, you don't think he's that he's using subterfuge or anything like that. You believe him in that moment that he is a man who has lost himself, and Ruben plays it so beautifully because he stands up straight, and it's almost like a Kaiser Soze moment in Usual Suspects, where he suddenly starts walking straight and says, "You need a haircut, Morgan. It's good to see you." And so for me, it was much more about that. But in order to answer your question, yes, you will see Morgan try to bring the family back together.
Emphasis on the word try. I can't wait to see him do that. This is going to be a really exciting season 6. I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And thank you everyone who's out there watching. Don't forget to tune in to Fear the Walking Dead on Sunday nights at 9/8 Central on AMC. And be sure to subscribe to the ATX Festival YouTube channel for more great TV panels and conversations. You can also go to atxfestival.com or follow ATX TV on social media at ATX Festival to see other events that they have coming up like this one. Thank you guys.
Bye.